Okay.
Gene, I think you're better. Want to do this? Huh? Want to do this? You just volunteered.
So I do need a patient for the finger exam.
Are you going that way?
So ma'am, if you would, sit on the stool here so that you're sideways to the end of the table.
Wait, real quick. Are we starting with the PA hand finger or the lateral finger?
Well, first we'll start with the finger exam, and the first projection will be the PA.
Okay. I got you.
And so we know that that's the PA hand. So, ma'am, I want you to put your hand flat on this plate here. Now, notice how Courtney has placed her hand in the long axis of her hand isn't aligned with the long axis of her forearm. So, in order to get those in alignment, I'm just going to move around my IR. But you can do that. I'm going to measure my SID. Oh, it's right at 40. So, I'm centering at the third metacarpal phalangeal joint. So, you see how the borders of the collimation field, they're not parallel to the edges of the IR? I have to fix that. So I'm just going to turn the collimator box.
Oh.
How did you do that?
Yeah. So now I've aligned the collimator box so that the borders of the collimation field are parallel to the edges of the IR. Her fingers are slightly separated. Her palm is flat on the IR. And remember, we don't want this thumb sticking out too much, or else that will cause a collimation issue. Because if I collimate it in now, I would clip that thumb. So I'm going to tuck her thumb in. I want to include about an inch of the distal forearm in my image. I have to know what the affected finger is, which digit it is, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So when you simulate, I'm going to have all of these markers in my hand, mix them up, and draw one. So whichever finger is your affected finger for the simulation, it'll be chosen randomly. I want to make sure that I place a digit marker by the finger of interest, the affected finger. I'm going to place my side marker here, making sure that both are in the collimation field, but not too close to soft tissue. I'm going to provide shielding for the patient. Put that on her lap. And notice that I'm centered at the third MCP, metacarpal phalangeal joint, and that my central ray is centered to the IR. The long axis of the hand is parallel to the long axis of the IR. And I step away, and I say, what do I say? Hold still. Expose. So again, the PA finger is identical in every way to the PA hand, with the exception of needing the digit marker for the finger of interest. Now, for the oblique finger. This is a 45-degree angle sponge that I'm going to use. I'm placing the hand so that, again, the long axis of the hand and forearm are in alignment. her metacarpals,
Should I go from other side?
That's all.
yeah, sure. Her metacarpals are in contact with the IR, and so is her finger. Here, so if the fifth digit is the digit of interest, I'm just gonna separate the other digits from it. I'm centering to the proximal interphalangeal joint. Sorry. There we go.
That's the one you're measuring. I mean, you're x-raying, right?
What's that?
This right here is what you're x-raying.
Her fifth digit,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm centered to the PIP, the proximal interphalangeal joint. Again, the long axis of the part is aligned parallel to the long axis of the IR. My central ray is centered to the IR. I'm going to place my 5 here to say the fifth digit is of interest. And this is the PA oblique finger. So the finger is oblique, 45 degrees. I have my left marker in. Now this time, as opposed to the PA hand that we did for the PA finger, I'm collimating to the finger of interest. I'm including the distal metacarpals. Whoops. Where is that? There it is. So if I collimated to the finger of interest, I could collimate really, really tight. But then I'd be cutting off my marker. My marker wouldn't be in the light field. So the other thing I could do is collimate tight and move that left marker in. But if I do that, I risk,
Cutting off the anatomy.
yeah, I risk getting the marker in the way of the soft tissue of the anatomy. So I'd rather open up that collimation a little bit, make sure that I'm not putting the marker in the anatomy of interest. I've shielded my patient, my SID, ooh, still 40. Step away,
Hold still.
hold still.
Exposure.
So
Yes.
versus the hand, you don't have to include like the other fingers. Like you literally just
No.
focusing on this one with the
So when
oblique.
you perform the hand exam, for the PA finger, sorry, when you perform the finger exam, for the PA finger, you include the entire hand. But then, for your next two projections, the oblique and the lateral, you center and collimate to the affected finger. Yeah.
So do you want it resting on the sponge?
Yeah,
Okay.
for the fifth digit.
On the IR end sponge, kind of like that.
Well, let me clarify that. The finger is resting against the sponge
To make it oblique.
to make it oblique, and it's the fifth digit, so it's resting against the IR. But if the fourth digit is the digit of interest, you have to have the part parallel to the IR so that you don't close joint spaces. So this is correct. If I had the distal finger resting on the IR, then the finger is no longer parallel to the IR. Now it is.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's parallel to the IR, but that's not.
But what about central rays,
Mhm.
centering the core tissue?
So the central ray, center our central ray to the IR. I'm gonna have you move your hand
Oh, okay.
over. I'm centering still to the PIP, the proximal interphalangeal joint. My central ray is still centered to my IR.
That's what I was gonna ask. Where do you put the markers for that?
Number 4 is-
So you gotta open up.
Now, this points out something good too. So if I'm gonna put my marker, my 4 out here to show that the fourth digit is of interest, I'd have to open up that collimation. The other thing that you can do is adjust the position of your sponge.
Move it down where the fingers kind of stick off the top.
So now you can collimate just a teensy bit more, not a lot more. Put that left marker in there. So did I move you?
I moved my hand a little bit and my arm.
I can't see my central ring.
I can kind of see.
There we go. That's why. There. So I'm centered still at the proximal interphalangeal joint. I have my number 4 here saying that the fourth digit is the one of interest. I've included my left marker. Patient has shielding. So this is the PA oblique finger fourth digit. Hold still.
Exposure.
Exposure. Now, if it were the third digit of interest, there again, separate the other fingers away from that finger. We're going to use a number 3. We're still centered to the proximal interphalangeal joint. We're including in our collimation distal metacarpals. Get our left marker there. There we go. The fingers parallel to the IR. The hand, forearm parallel to the long axis of the IR.
So like with this, it's okay because like I can't press all. It was like mine's
No,
not like
no.
really wanting to go all the way down.
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay.
It kind of looks uncomfortable.
So,
Slightly.
I really can't collimate. I can't, there, couldn't see it. Really can't collimate it anymore. I clip my marker here. I'm gonna turn down the light a little bit so you can see our central ray. Why don't they go any lower than that?
I think they do.
I think they do. I think Miss Bright did it once before. Because I think they cut it too low. I just don't know how.
I mean, you can see it a lot better than before now.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. All right. Hold
So,
still.
like-
Exposure.
If you're not doing, like, if you're not x-raying this part, but this part, would you just do the same? Or is
You
it
wouldn't.
always just
Always
this,
that,
even
yeah.
if you're looking at something up here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, you're always going to center in the same spot, whether the injury occurred at the distal part of the finger or the
So
proximal.
when I adjust the collimation, how much the extra bottom to the the
So
joint?
you include the distal metacarpals, but see, so if you didn't have this number marker there, you would collimate in more closely. But, and that's what I was saying in class, is that, yeah, ideally, that's how you would collimate. But since you gotta make sure you have that marker in there, and you see the shadow of the finger,
yes.
you wouldn't ever wanna get that marker too close to the shadow,
Okay.
or else it might be in the way of the soft tissue of the finger. So, yeah, ideally, you might wanna collimate more, but it's opened a little more so that you can include that marker.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Hold still. Exposure. Aha! Now for the second digit. If the second digit is the one of interest, all of these have been lateral obliques. For the second digit, you're going to tuck the unaffected fingers in.
just like, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Now, you see how her elbow's way up?
I gotta go on the other side.
I'm gonna raise the table. I can't too much.
It's okay, I can lower.
I'm gonna
Ish.
change out your stool for this chair.
It's a little heavy.
Be careful, and you can move your finger. I know where it goes, I can put it back. All right. Now I've changed the height of my table, so I need to make sure that I adjust my SID so that it's 40. Now again, we want her to be comfortable when she's positioned, but we also want to make sure that, again, the long axis of the hand and the forearm are aligned. So flex these unaffected fingers under. Okay. So that's the medial oblique. Still centered to the proximal interphalangeal joint. Mark this with a 2. And I'm going to collimate in just a smidge only. So the finger is oblique at 45 degrees. We have that finger as close to the IR as we can get it. That's kind of awkward.
Is that why the fingers had to be tucked to make it oblique? Like that?
Like it's resting,
yeah, it's
kinda?
kind of like her hand.
Well, not really, because, you know, on the third, on the oblique for the third digit, it's not resting on the IR.
Well, I'm saying because how is it oblique if it's not nothing turning it? Is it because her?
Oh, do you see her finger?
Is it
Her finger is angled.
Yeah.
So it's not PA and it's not lateral. It's
in between?
oblique.
Okay.
Yeah, 45 degrees. All right. So that would be positioning for the second digit for the PA oblique finger. Hold still. Exposure. So, did I tell you how your finger's gonna be chosen?
You are gonna just
Random.
All right. Where's my 4th digit?
What is it?
Oh! All right. Now for the lateral. So, ma'am, extend your arm. This is your lateral finger. You're still centered at the proximal interphalangeal joint.
So do you kind of use the other fingers to help you?
No, this is where it gets tricky. You need to keep the unaffected fingers out of the way. So we use this block sponge to help position. So the finger's lateral. We're still centered at the proximal interphalangeal joint. The long axis of the part is aligned to the long axis of the IR. We have our 5 for our 5th digit. We're still including at least the distal metacarpals.
Those have to be included for all of them.
For all of the fingers for the oblique and lateral. Okay. Shielding, still at 40-inch SID. Hold still. Exposure.
So
So remember when you do your simulation, you'll actually go to the opening
And do it.
by the control panel to give your instructions.
For simulations, are we only doing like one digit? That's the one you're just gonna pick, or do we have to like demonstrate? all
No,
of them?
you'll do, so if I draw a 4,
You do them all. for
you'll
the
do the PA, the oblique, and the lateral.
four. For the 4.
And the 4th digit will be the affected digit.
That works.
Their thumb, like, I just happened to have it down here. Is that does it matter? Okay. I was-
As long as it's not back here, yeah.
okay.
So the fourth digit, same thing.
Oh, it's a little tougher.
Yeah. So flex those fingers. Now,
That looks so weird.
I'm here to tell you, nobody can do this. Not anybody can extend that fourth digit without superimposing the other fingers. It's impossible.
You tell like right here.
Yeah. I mean, because this is what you want.
All the way out.
And you can't do it without a positioning sponge. So again, long axis of the part is aligned with the long axis of the IR. This is now our fourth digit. Now this is what's important with the oblique fingers, with the lateral fingers, is that, when I just demonstrated the fifth digit, the finger was resting on the IR. But with the fourth digit, you have to make sure that that finger stays parallel to the IR. If the distal tip of the finger is resting on the IR, then your finger is not parallel to the IR. And that will close off joint spaces.
What if they're not able to like is that a thing? Like if they're not able to like keep it rested in that position, like would you do anything or does it just usually stay?
It's just gonna depend. I mean, if you try to do this, let's say there was a fracture here and you tried to do this, they may not be too happy. So you'd have to modify your positioning to get as close to the lateral as you could. Okay, so we're still centered at the proximal interphalangeal joint. Centered to our IR. We have our fourth digit, or 4 on there, marking the fourth digit. We have our left marker. We have all the other unaffected fingers, unsuperimposed, flexed,
Hold still.
patient shielded, 40-inch SID. Hold still, exposure. Third digit, same thing. Use that block sponge, put the metacarpals resting against the IR. Make sure that finger is parallel to the IR. We'll change out our marker. Use a 3, that's the third digit. Scoot your hand back. Still centering to the proximal interphalangeal joint. Collimated to include distal metacarpals. We have shielding. 40-inch SID. Hold still. Exposure. Now, all of these, the fifth through the third fingers, you've done a lateral medial. Lateral. Because in an anatomic position, this is the lateral side. So the path of our central ray has been lateral to medial. So this is a lateral, medial, lateral. But if we did a lateral, medial, lateral of the second digit, we would have quite a bit of OID. So you turn the hand over. And again, keep the long axis of the part parallel to the long axis of the IR. For the second digit only, we're doing a medial lateral projection.
Medium, okay.
Still centered to the proximal interphalangeal joint. We have our number 2 digit on. We have our left marker on. including the distal metacarpal. Making sure that that finger is lateral and not rotated.
How can you tell if it's like rotated?
Honestly, look at the fingernail.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. It's easiest to tell by looking at the fingernail if it's not rotated. You're a good videographer.
You have to be.
It's in your best interest, right?
And
All right, we have our shielding. Our central, or our SID is still 40 inches. Hold still. Exposure. That's it for the finger.
I was gonna
So,
say, just for the
do we have to, like when we Sims, do we have to get the IR ourselves? We have to find the 10 by 12?
Yeah, you do everything yourself from now on. You were spoiled on that PA lateral space. Are we good, Courtney?
Yeah?
All right. For the hand, place your hand right down on that plate for me. And again, long axis of the hand is parallel to the long axis of the IR. And the hand and the forearm are in alignment. So if your patient was sitting like this,
That one is not in the
that wouldn't be correct because your hand and forearm wouldn't be in alignment. Oops.
So that's what you were saying whenever you said about like ulnar and radial deviation.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you move your wrist this way,
That would be a ulnar.
ulnar deviation. Yeah, exactly. But you don't have to simulate that one.
Thank the Lord.
Good thing, Miss North. Lord, I got nothing to do with it. Okay, and again, now this is the PA hand. For the hand exam, you have your fingers spread apart. Your thumb isn't way out here, tucked in a little bit. I'm including distal 1 inch of the radius and ulna. My marker. My central ray is centered to the center of my IR. My SID, still at 40, still shielded. That's all I got. Hold still exposure.
These actually don't seem as bad right now.
I don't think so.
You're running low on battery.
Oh,
No, that-
what?
Yeah, it's flashing.
Okay, here. Sorry.